Welcome to the CapLanner podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of private capital markets. Whether you're new to private market investing or a seasoned professional, this podcast unpacks the latest trends, insights, and opportunities shaping the industry. Featuring expert guests and deep discussions, CapLanner is your go-to resource for staying informed and inspired.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Morgan. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Jody. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Jody. Hi, Morgan.
Today, we are joined by Tom, who is the CEO and founder of Hurdle Bio. Tom, thanks for joining us, and tell us a little bit about where you are now. You said that you're in northern Spain.
I am. I'm up in northern Spain in Galicia. Not my normal hangout.
I think we can tell from your accent where your normal hangout is somewhere in the UK, right? I mean, I wish we could be a little more delicate about it, but there seems to be no question.
Correct. I am from the UK, and normally I would say that it is cooler in the UK, but actually for the odd peculiarities of a heat wave that the UK is experiencing that apparently northern Spain isn't experiencing, I think it is actually weirdly warmer in the UK than it is in Spain.
No, because I've been
Just my
watching
luck.
Wimbledon right now, so I can see that what's been going on.
Correct.
You are like the quintessential founder, CEO. Obviously we have done some background and research, and we're really glad to have you because you represent, especially since we've been dealing in life sciences, as my mother's birthday approaches on July 13th. That's the date that I started my company. So I know that it is 28 years, and you have been the classic client and friend and colleague that we've had who founded a company, and here you are all these years later still running this company. So maybe give us a little background on what Hurdle does and how you came up with this idea, and more importantly, how it's been a career for you as a scientist and a CEO.
Yeah, sure. Happy to, Jody. So Hurdle Bio is a full stack AI diagnostics platform for precision medicine. Essentially, kind of unpacking that, we recognize that diagnostics haven't kept pace with the advancements that we're seeing on the therapeutic side of things, with more and more targeted and tailored treatments, meaning that we need better, not just diagnostics and biomarkers in general, but better solutions for actually implementing these innovative biomarker and diagnostics where they're needed most. So whether that's in a hospital setting or in the setting of a patient's home. And really at Hurdle, we support from what we would say is bench to bedside. So from discovery work with our multimodal AI discovery engine to support biopharma customers with discovering and advancing novel biomarkers.
Okay, you got to break this down for people. When you talk about this, we need a layperson's version, because I'm sure that not everybody. Morgan, do you know exactly what Tom's talking about?
I can kind of keep up with it.
Why don't you give us an iteration back and let Tom fill in the gaps? So what does this mean to you, Morgan?
I guess so the biomarkers you're talking about when somebody has diseases or pre-existing conditions, or they have something that could be a disease down the line, or that's what the biomarkers would be?
Yeah, so biomarkers are important throughout life. So if you're in a healthy kind of population health setting, or maybe you're wanting to prevent or be proactive around your health, you may take a blood test to look at your cholesterol level as an example, something like that. That would be a kind of a simple blood-based or pathology biomarker. There are also biomarkers that are diagnostics. In a clinical setting where maybe you have a concern that you may have cardiovascular disease or, heaven forbid, anything else that, I don't want to label on you, Morgan.
Right. But say that I came to you or came to Hurdle Bio and I said, I'm a 30-year-old female and I'm interested in knowing more about my health and I want to be preventative. How would I be a patient or a client or a subscriber of Hurdle Bio?
Yeah, so we're B2B, so you wouldn't directly come to us, but you'd come to one of our customers, which could be a diagnostics company themselves, or could be a consumer health organization, or a health system, or right, something like that. And through that journey, you'd be accessing testing of various different sorts.
Right.
And under the hood, those would be powered by Hurdle.
Got it. So, but your whole goal really, that's the name Hurdle, right? Because you changed the name once.
Yeah, correct. So we were founded as chronomics, so Chronos, the god of time, and omics being large biological data that ultimately you can use to create these exquisitely sensitive biomarkers. And we shifted that to focusing not on the what, but the impact that we want to drive. So we want to, break through barriers to accelerate the impact of novel diagnostics and ultimately novel treatments getting to market and being accessible at scale within populations, which is what Hurdle's there to do. And it's something that we hear every day and kind of twice on Sundays is the hurdles in healthcare or the challenges that pharma companies face in bringing something to market or running a study or whatever it may be. Hurdle is used very frequently, surprisingly frequently, as a buzzword for just all of the challenges that people are facing within this space. And we're ultimately there to be a platform or infrastructure to remove as many of those challenges and blockers as possible to really accelerate the advancements that we're seeing in academia and in science reaching patients through our customers.
Which probably leads to the next point. So you were a bench scientist. And so where did you see the need for a company like this to exist?
Yeah, I mean, how did
Yeah,
you
sure.
translate this from being a scientist to being a CEO? Because we know that's very tricky. We had a guest on who is a partner at a venture firm, and she was a bench scientist, and now she's in venture. And she sort of described her career path. But yours is obviously a CEO is a little bit different.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's definitely there are a lot of differences, but there are also some similarities, I think, between the two. But as you say, my background was in academia originally, so I studied at University of Oxford in the UK in molecular and cellular biochemistry, and then I did a PhD and short postdoc at the University of Cambridge under two professors there, one of whom was responsible for the founding technology behind next generation sequencing. Big companies like Illumina that are doing genome sequencing, making genome sequencing instruments, etc., that people are using to get genetic tests or liquid biopsy tests or whatever it may be. He was kind of the founding technology behind that. And another professor that was heavily in DNA methylation and epigenetics technologies. And during that time, I was working a lot on both at the bench, but also at a computational level on methods for understanding and looking at and making sense of what's happening in single cells using next generation sequencing approaches, as well as methods to look at DNA methylation. So modifications on your DNA that control how it's expressed and characteristics of a given cell. And so I was doing that at a wet lab and computational level.
Were you always interested in the science aspect of it? Were you the kid in the mud, like mixing things together, or the person in the kitchen with like 100 different bowls?
I've always been fascinated by science and particularly biological systems. I think it's incredible when you look at them and understand them at a deeper level to think, wow, we're not just dying in any moment, but we are able to live and sustain these delicate balances between cells or even within cells, between molecules that are kind of, reacting and evolving to kind of keep us alive. I think it's fascinating and at one point terrifying, and now I've kind of come full circle to it's impressive. And there's obviously a lot of robustness in the system because we're not just melting into a pool of cells at any moment in time.
How does that compare, though, to being a CEO? I mean, where do you transition your leadership hat?
Yeah, I think ultimately, I was always fascinated by science, and I was on a path from an academic perspective to becoming a tenured professor. And I think realized that I enjoyed science. I also enjoyed being able to explain science and have science, be working with science in a way that's understandable for my friends and family and people that I'm interacting with on a more kind of daily or regular basis.
Yeah, because that's a
And
unique skill, is to be able to cover both sides, right? There are leadership people and CEOs who don't have the science, and there are science people who don't have the leadership or the, the strategic perspective, but you clearly had both. You have both.
I try.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always wanted to kind of strike that balance and wanted to work on things that had meaning and would deliver impact for people at scale in a near medium term. And essentially, yeah, shifted my path to that as opposed to focusing on science in an academic setting that was
Right.
deeply interesting. But the kind of further I was going down that path, the fewer and fewer people you could talk to about what you were researching or what you were working on. And ultimately, that work is incredibly important and needs to be happening to drive the world forwards. But it's stuff that perhaps impacts people's lives in 50 years, 100 years' time, as opposed to wanting to impact people's lives in 5, 10, 20 years' time.
How do you find the general private capital market ecosystem in the UK? We've been doing a lot with the BIA there because their companies and members wanted to have a UK specific private company compensation data set. And so much of what Jody and I have learned through the partnership and working with the members directly and coming for speaking engagements and in-person events has really been how much movement there is between Cambridge in Boston, Massachusetts versus there is in Cambridge in the UK. And have you, especially having gone to school there, have you seen a lot of that movement back and forth of talent, or do you have a global team at Hurdle?
Yeah, so I'd say within the research teams, so whether those are kind of science R&D teams, AI teams within Hurdle, there is quite a lot of talent that's coming through the kind of Cambridge Oxford ecosystem or
Triangle,
network.
right?
Boston.
Yeah, exactly. The golden triangle, I guess, as
Right.
it's kind of referred to in the UK.
Right.
So London, Oxford, and Cambridge. So yeah, that definitely exists, and there's incredible kind of talent density in those markets. I think from a capital perspective, raising capital in the UK versus other places, yeah, it's different. Like every market's distinct. It's very distinct to the US market, particularly in early stage or venture, I would say.
How important is it to you to be positioned globally as well and have outside of the UK?
Yes, it's crucial for us as a business. I mean, one of the things we're really focused on as part of that, accelerating the impact of health advancements and diagnostic advancements, is breaking down the barriers between a new innovation that maybe is discovered or developed in Australia or in the UK or in America, being able to spread across other geographies and provide access to people globally in as short a period as time. Very important. And then as you think about bringing novel innovations to market, obviously the US ecosystem is incredibly important, as well as, more broadly being able to operate across UK, Europe, and
Europe.
ultimately the rest of the world.
Right.
Hey, so I have a question for you. You said you're in Spain right now. Are you there for business or for personal, or are you on a trip? What's your life like outside of the Hurdle? Is there one, or how does it all coalesce?
Yeah, so I'm here working, but I'm with my family who are enjoying a bit of a summer holiday. So my partner,
Nice.
she's a teacher, and my two young kids
Summer
are
break. Right.
not at school any moment.
So do
That's
your young
exciting.
kids have any idea what you do? Obviously, as I sit here with my daughter, do your children have an idea of what their father does?
I think they think he is on phone calls and just typing away on a computer screen all day. Whenever, yeah, maybe they come to kind of where I'm working and go and sit on my lap and tell me that they're working, they're literally just typing
Right.
aimlessly on a laptop. So
I remember the first time I had an article published in the Wall Street Journal, and I sent it to my son, who at the time was, I don't know, maybe like, yeah, high school. And he put in lowercase in the text message back to me, yeah, that's great, mom, period. And then in all uppercase, he said, we are out of orange juice, and when can you pick up my dry cleaning? And I was
yeah,
like,
that
okay, this child is going to keep me honest. So I'm sure it sounds like you have a little bit of that humble pie over in the UK or Spain or wherever you are as well.
yeah, there's nothing like a new research publication going to press or something and showing a loved one and them looking at you blank as if it's a handkerchief or something else.
I think it's part of the balancing act between being a leader, especially Jody and Tom, both of you being CEOs, where you really do have an important job, especially that affects other people. I mean, Tom, you're really working with patients, which is so much of, we work with more than half of our data set are life science companies. And really one of the most consistent themes that we hear from executives and really whether it's investors or CEOs or recruiters, it's all about the patients and patient outcomes,
Patient
patients having
care.
a higher quality of life. And it's really where that balancing act between doing that at work and then coming home and seeing, okay, well, this is the next generation where, God willing, your company and what you're doing is going to not only improve other patients in general, but maybe possible patients in your own home.
100%.
So as you look forward, Tom, what's on the horizon for you? Obviously, Hurdle's been what, almost a decade or even longer?
8
So
years, I
we've
think.
been getting on for 8 years now, in the making. Still young, Jody, and still a lot that we want to do, and a lot of kind of plans that we've got our sights on. In particular, at the moment, we're closing out a financing round at the moment, and we've got a couple of exciting announcements we'll be sharing with folks in the coming months, in the US.
Have you found the fundraising and financing? I mean, everyone talks about consistently how it's taking longer, how it's so slow. But then conversely, we also know where good companies are raising capital. So what's been your experience?
Yeah, I think my experience is it's more measured than it has been perhaps in prior years, but fundraising events are happening. And yeah, maybe they're taking longer. So I think it's important for founders, if they are kind of going through this, to obviously make sure that you're planning with sufficient time in front of you from a runway perspective to make sure that it's successful. But what I would say is that, yeah, they are happening. So yeah, stick with the program and kind of the process that you need to go through to make it happen.
Well, I think that's a great way to wind up because we've said in every version of this, regardless of who we've been discussing on our Caplander podcast, sort of to stay the course. It's a long game, big picture. I was listening to a country song. I'm up here in our house in North Carolina, up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And so there's a song that says about having a backup plan, and your backup plan is to have a backup plan and to keep going regardless. So I think that's the crux of it, right? You've always got to have a backup plan, and that is
Gotta
to believe
hurdle
in
it.
yourself. What's
Yep.
Morgan?
Gotta hurdle it.
Yeah, you
Only
got to
way.
hurdle it.
Gotta hurdle it. Brilliant.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you, Tom, for joining us. And we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Pleasure, Morgan, and great to see you again, Jody.